All right, so okay, exception handling is the most important chapter in Java programs, and it's also the most ignored aspect of programming. Okay, listen this carefully. Okay, so like I said, exception handling is the most important aspect of programming, and it's also the most ignored aspect of programming. Okay, uh, exception handling is a process where it allows you to handle any failure scenarios. Okay, so think about it like this: developers typically do not expect to anything go wrong. Okay, that's our nature. We don't think anything negatively. Okay, we think everything will be good, everything will be happy, but that's not how software programming works. Okay, programming world things might go wrong in hundreds of different ways. Okay, for an example, if you have a simple program of 10 lines of code, okay, which is used for withdrawing money, this program will be used by millions of customers of a banking company, banking website. Okay, so imagine how many ways people might screw up this software. Okay, 1 million people trying to use your software in 1 million different ways. So imagine how many ways this program can go wrong. Okay, if you are designing a software for only one customer, then you have to only tend to the needs of that one customer. Okay, you have to write a program that is custom made for this one customer. That makes sense. Okay, so in that case, your code is perfectly built for that. But when you do the programming for all the J2E Java based applications, it's not like you're writing a software for only one customer. Your software will be used, your program will be used by millions of customers. And that's when things get tricky. Okay, so exception handling is the best way, the best approach for you to get out of any such failure scenarios. Okay, so let's see what that is and how to implement that. Okay, so exception handling is an important part of programming. All the programming systems can fail anytime due to known or unknown reasons. Okay, the program should be equipped to handle such situations. Exception can occur due to human error, hardware, or software constraint. Okay. Now, exceptions, the program can fail anytime due to known or unknown reasons. Okay, let's look at that. Have you seen any message on any of the softwares? Okay, maybe your operating system, maybe on a website where things went wrong and they just showed you a message like, sorry for the inconvenience and we'll get back to you soon. Or sorry for your inconvenience, please try again later. Or some error message with a random error code, which doesn't make sense. Okay, have you guys seen any such messages?
Yes.
That would be an unknown reason. Okay, your program failed for an unknown reason. So typically what software developers do is if there is something that if there is some reason, if there is some unknown reason your program fails, we should provide a constant static message to the customer saying we don't know what's wrong really. Okay, you can't tell them. So what we say is sorry for the inconvenience, please try again later, or we will call back you. Okay, so that's what unknown reasons is. Now program can also fail due to known reasons. Okay, so what are the known reasons? Known reasons are those where you predict that something might go wrong. Okay, now take the banking example itself. If you are using a ATM software how many ways your transaction could fail due to known reasons? Yes. Have you guys had any problem, any messages on the ATM software? Not a generic message, not a generic, we apologize for this and that. Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. Not like that. A proper message. Your login failed. User ID password failed. User ID is already in use. Choose a different user ID for registration. Like that. Okay, there we know why your login failed because your user ID password did not match. We know why the registration failed because whatever user ID you chose, that has already been assigned or taken by some other customer. Those are known reasons why your program failed. Okay, so like that, how many ways, known ways, okay, not unknown, but known ways your program can fail in a banking or a ATM software? Anyone?
Insufficient fund,
Insufficient fund. Yes. And
wrong pin code, like wrong pin code
yes,
for the card, valid.
invalid PIN, uh, invalid or damaged card. Okay. These are the typical messages you might see. You swipe your card and your card might have been damaged. Okay. So that's why the ATM software could not read your information. Card is fine, but whatever PIN you entered, that was not right. There's another failure message. You try to withdraw and you don't have enough balance in your account, insufficient fund. So these type of messages are what we call known reasons. Okay, these are known reasons. We know why your transaction failed. Okay, unknown reasons are something where even your software doesn't know what went wrong. Okay, unknown reasons are where people typically see a message like, sorry for the inconvenience, please try again later. Sorry for the inconvenience, call us on this 1-800 number and we will solve your problem, we'll fix your issue. That's what unknown reasons are. Okay, if we know what the problem is, we know what the instruction can be given. Okay, so there are known reasons and unknown reasons your software can fail. That's what your program, when you're writing a software, you have to consider the failure scenarios as well. Okay, you have to consider failure scenarios as well. But as a developer, we have a positive attitude. No, not as a developer, but as a human nature, we have that positive attitude all the time. And that causes developers to ignore the exception handling aspect of a programming. Okay, so when you're writing a program, don't think about just what would happen if it was a happy path. Okay, sometimes there will be bad flow as well. Okay, not all the times are good times. Sometimes there will something will go wrong. So as a programmer, it's your job to prepare for a good scenario as well as a bad scenario, good execution as well as a bad execution. Okay, that's what all exception handling is about. Exception handling focuses on the bad scenarios. What would you do if something goes wrong? How do you convey that message to the customer? How do you tell them what went wrong? Okay, that part. All right, so do you guys get the idea on what exactly exception handling is all about?
Yes.
All right, so exception handling typically steps in whenever things goes wrong. Now the question is, what else can we get from the exception handling? First, you have a website program, okay, like this, and you have hundreds of Java programs. Okay, see here how many programs I have just for this simple Java training classes. I have how many programs here? Okay, there are so many programs in my project, hundreds. Okay. Now the question is, if someone says there is a problem with their login or payment, how do you know where the problem is? Out of hundreds of classes, okay, there are hundreds of classes, and every class has dozens or even hundreds of lines. So technically, what you're looking at is hundreds of thousands of lines of code. If a customer calls your tech support and tells them, I have a problem. When I try to pay my bill, I'm getting this error on your website. Okay. When I try to log in, I'm getting this error. I can't log in. I can't pay my bills. I can't transfer money. Okay. These are the typical problems that customer complain, right? To all the online websites. So as a developer, you should exactly know where to look at, which line number. So the trick is, out of those hundreds of thousands of lines of all the programs that you have in your project, which is the exact line that caused this problem for this one particular customer? That's the challenge. Okay. Now the good thing is, that's where exception handling comes in. Exception handling can actually allow you to narrow down the exact line number out of all those hundreds of thousands of lines. Okay, out of those thousands and thousands of lines, it will exactly pinpoint which line your problem is, where you're getting this failure transaction. Okay, that's the beauty of exception handling. So for developers, exception handling is like a God gift. Okay, anytime you see an error message, if your program ever fails, there is nothing to panic about it. If your program does not execute, there is nothing to worry about it, as long as you have done the exception handling. If you've done the exception handling, it can exactly tell you the line number where the problem is. Okay, so that this is the major reason you need it, exception handling, for debugging issues. Okay, so you guys understand what a debug is? Okay, do you understand what debug means?
Fixing errors.
Finding the bug.
Finding the bug. Okay, it is basically derived from one of the experience in early computer era. Okay, so they had a giant machine, like maybe 10 feet tall box kind of a machine, and all it could store is like 1 MB data. Today you can fit like 100 GB in your pocket. Okay, in the very early era, when there was some problem with the computer was not working, and they closed that issue saying they found a bug, meaning there was literally a bug in that machine. Okay, and that name basically got stuck. So debug is basically to find errors, find problems in your program, in your code. Okay, if someone says your program is failing, your program is crashing, then you need to find out exactly where the problem is and fix it. That's what debugging is. Okay, now from customer point of view, it also serves a very important message. Okay, now first thing first, you need to understand one thing. Your customers are not all your customers will be from a technical background, right? None of your not all of your customers will know what is this error. Okay, so let me reproduce an error. Okay, let me show you an error, and then you can see that. Okay, I will introduce an error here. All right, so when you divide any number by 0, what do you get?
Zero.
No, if you
25.
multiply, If you multiply any number with 0, it becomes 0. What happens if you divide any number by 0?
Infinite.
Infinite.
Infinite. Okay, so the number, when you divide by 0, is infinite. So do we have any data type that can handle infinity? Everything has a limit. Integer, short, byte, long, isn't it? There are fixed number of bytes that can handle your int and long. Okay, everything has a limit. Int has like maybe 2 billion. Long has maybe like a couple of trillions. But is a trillion infinity? No. So when you divide any number by 0, the result you get is infinity. And there is no data type to handle or store infinity value. Okay, infinity meaning your memory, whatever memory you have in your computer, that's not enough to store that number. That's how big the number is. Okay, no amount of memory in the world can store a number that big. That's what infinity means. Okay, so if you have that kind of a number, you get an error here. Okay, whenever you divide any number by 0, you get an infinity error. It's called arithmetic error. Okay, so I'm on purpose, I'm dividing a number with a 0. So I will get an error at this line. All right, so let's assume customer is trying to withdraw some amount. Okay, and when they do request for executing this withdrawal, okay, this is what they get. Now tell me one thing, for this is the failure. Okay, anytime you see a red output on the console, meaning your program has failed. Your program failed anytime you see a red output like this. Okay, so if this is the message that a customer sees who has no technical background, will they understand anything from this?
No.
Will it make any sense why your transaction failed and what to do to avoid this failure in future? Do they have any message at all?
No.
No. So that's what exception handling does. Exception handling allows you to translate technical details into a more layman term. Okay, so basically what happens is when you see an error because someone tries to withdraw amount from their balance which is less than the balance, right? You can basically translate that message into more meaningful words. Like you can say your balance is quite low, so please try to enter a number lower than your balance. Now that message makes sense to customer, right? So when they are withdrawing, and imagine if this is the error that we got when they try to withdraw a higher amount than the balance. Showing this message will not make any sense to them. Rather than this technical details, if you just said whatever amount you're trying to withdraw, it should be less than your balance. So why don't you try again with a smaller number? That is more meaningful. That is what customer can understand. Okay. So why do we need this? First, if there is no message at all, that is a problem as well. So when a customer does some transaction on a ATM software, things can go wrong in multiple ways. You have insufficient fund, you had invalid PIN, or you had a damaged card. Okay, things might go wrong in 100 different ways. Now, if you just say every time any one of these problem happens, every time you just say transaction failed. If every time you have just one message, transaction failed, will the customer ever know what to do so this error doesn't happen again? Did you give any instructions to them?
No.
No. Customer has no idea if their ATM transaction failed because their card is damaged. Okay, if your card is damaged or if you have invalid PIN or insufficient fund, they have no clue why they are not able to use the ATM. Okay, so displaying just one message every time something goes wrong is totally putting customer in the dark. Okay, customer has no clue. If you tell them, you know what, you have a damaged card, why don't you call this toll-free number and we will mail you a new card. Okay, your card has been blocked due to some fishy activity. So call this number and confirm your transactions and we'll unlock your account. Your PIN is wrong. Okay, why don't you give some authentication and reset your PIN? You don't have enough balance. Why don't you enter a lower amount? If you give the exact message, then it makes sense. But for everything, if you just keep saying transaction failed, customer has no idea what action they have to take. Okay, so exception handling allows you to customize this message. You can customize messages for different failures. If the failure is because of the fund, your message can be customized saying, why don't you enter a lower amount? Okay, if it is because of a damaged card, you can tell them, call this number and we will mail you a new card. So customer knows what action to be taken for whatever the reason the transaction failed. Okay, so that's what you can also do with exception handling. Okay, first of all, technical details, not all your customers will understand. So you need to put that in a proper text, in a layman term. Okay, second, you can customize various messages for different failures. Okay, so customer knows what action to be taken if this happens. What can I do? What can I do if this happens? What can I do if this happens? So if customer knows what action to be taken, they won't get frustrated. Okay, if you say transaction failed every time and not tell them what went wrong, it will drive your customer crazy. So they will just quit your company. They'll go to some other website because it is just too frustrating. You're not telling them clearly what the problem is. Okay, so you should also customize your messages for different failures. All right, it will help you in debugging issues. You can convert the technical message into a more generic term that customers can understand, that customer can relate to. You can customize various messages for different kind of failures. Okay, so customer knows what action to be taken. Okay, all right, so do you guys follow what is the benefit of exception handling?
Yes.
Right. Now, looking at the first thing, debugging issues, right? Now, if I run a random program, okay, so there are so many programs here in my project, okay, hundreds. Okay, I have hundreds of programs here. And when my software runs, I'm getting this error. Okay, there is nothing to look at here. There is no program to look at. Now, this would be a very difficult situation to find out where the problem is out of these many programs. Which one is failing? Okay, so this is what we call exception stack trace. Okay, exception stack trace. Okay, I'll tell you what a stack is in a minute. Okay, so here, if you notice, it will tell you two things. The origin and where the error happened, where everything began and where the error happened. That's what it tells you. So typically the very first line in exception tells you what is wrong. What is the problem in your code? The very first line tells you what is the problem in your code. After that, the very second line will tell you where exactly it is happening. Out of these hundreds of lines of programs, okay, hundreds of programs and thousands of lines of code, it is exactly pinpointing where the problem is. Okay, you click on that, it will take you exactly to that line. It's telling me out of all these programs, this is where your problem is. This is the line where the problem is. So look carefully. The message says arithmetic exception, divide by 0. Okay, in arithmetics, if you divide any number by 0, you get infinity. Okay, so there is no data type that can hold infinite number. Okay, now if you're wondering where are we doing this divide by 0, look at the very next line. It tells you where you're doing that. Okay, you're doing that in bankaccount.java program. Bankaccount.java program, line number 7. Line number 7. This is exactly where the problem is. Okay, now you know where the problem is. You can read what the message says. Divide by 0. Okay, this is where I'm dividing by 0 and it is causing me infinity. So you can fix this line and everything will be fine then. Okay, you know where the problem is. Now fix it. No more errors. A clean output. Okay, so the next time if you guys ever get this scary failure message, you should be glad. This is your only best friend to help you out of this giant mess. This is the only thing that can help you out. Okay, without this message, you're totally blind. Okay, so if you know that the error is divide by 0, do you have the patience to go through every single program and look where you're dividing by 0? No, right? All right, guys. So